A long time ago, and I'd like to say in a galaxy far away, but it was actually Isleworth, southwest London. I was invited to put on a short play as part of an evening's entertainment. I didn't really know very much about theatre at that time, although I aspired to. I chose a play by W B Yeats called Deirdre, and I chose it mainly because it was by W B Yeats, and I'd heard of him. He'd been a translator of the 10 principal Upanishads along with Sri Purohit Swami, which I'd come across and loved. It's a beautiful translation. I'm sure you know it. And, if we ever see a random quotation from the Upanishads, it's very likely from that Yeats translation. So I cast the play. Let me take the fellow down. And I included a couple of people who knew about theatre, which I thought might be an advantage, although I learned sort of fairly quickly that it wasn't. And I'm quite critical of the play, its clunkiness, its inclination to histrionics, the way it built to a crisis that seemed overdone and yet somehow not done enough. And I felt, I suppose, a growing disappointment, a slight encroachment of despair as the rehearsals carried on. But the day came, we added some interesting flourishes to the production. Part of the event took place in an open courtyard. And when I said I wanted to ride in on a white horse dressed as Conchobar, the Irish king, there was so much sniggering that I couldn't not do it. And I actually did arrive on a white horse declaiming Yeats. Talk about histrionics, talk about the bravado of youth. But as the play unfolded, I think that's the right word, something happened. Something was happening that, in a way, preceded and was empowered by and empowered and underpinned the text. There was an extraordinary sense of mythology, of a ritual by which something perennial, something permanent and indelible was being reenacted in front of us. I rather, perhaps cheekily, called this talk The Man, the Myth, because while there is the man with all the paraphernalia of his life, the debris he left behind and all his errors and all those things that make, I suppose, any of us fallible, there is the myth, which is to say that which underlies what his life was all about. And what his life was all about was poetry. And so whenever I speak of William Butler Yeats, the man, here, I'm not separating him from the context of what he really lived for, what he stood for, what he searched for, and what he most profoundly believed in, which was that at the heart of poetry can be found, if you like, that touch of the infinite. I'll talk about his life fairly briefly. He was born in County Dublin, Ireland, in 1865. The family moved to London. He did not too well at school. The family moved back to Ireland. He had an ill-starred love life. He helped to found the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. He wrote plays, stories, poems. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. He married late in life and had 2 children. He was interested in magic, joining a theosophical organization, attending seances. Auden called it silly. But for Yeats, as I understand it, it was silly not to ask, to inquire, to explore. And he searched ardently for the causes of things, for the heart of experience, for what it is to be human. The question is, what's behind what we see and hear and think and what we think we know? Because whatever that is what matters, certainly to the poet. So let's consider one of his best known poems. Why not? It was a hard choice, but I just thought this one, everyone goes, oh yes, it's so beautiful. The Lake Isles of Innisfree. It helps that Yeats talked about how the poem came to him. He was just 23 years old in London, walking along the Strand, and he saw a water fountain in a shop window with a little ball bouncing on the top, promoting, I don't know, a cool drink of some sort. And more importantly, he heard it, the sound of trickling water. And he wrote this. Let me share the poem with you. There it is. The Lake Isles of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the be-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey. I hear it in the deep heart's core. There's a lot that can be said about this, but obviously I can't say it all here, nor do I know everything there is to say about it. So I suggest you find it somewhere, read it, savor it, spend a little time with it, let it work. But I'll say a couple of things, maybe 3 or 4, that because the nod to Thoreau in the first verse, the simple cabin, solitude, row of beans, is delightful. So here we go. Well, the rhythm, what about that? It rises and it falls. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree. It's the wash of water lapping at the shore that he speaks of. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow. I wonder if you can hear that rise, that fall of the waves lapping. It was inspired, the poem was inspired by sound, feeling, the sound and feeling of water. And so all of that is in the very fabric of the text. And consider the story it tells. He doesn't go. He says, I will arise and go now. And later he says, I will arise and go now. He still hasn't gone. Why not? And consider the construction of that first statement. It's not, I will arise and go to Innisfree. The first statement is of the intent to leave the city, these great pavements, to go in search. I will arise and go now. And where will he search? Innisfree. We're not just told what the thought is. You see what I mean? We can see the thought itself finding itself. I mean, it's beautiful. So what is he searching for? Well, childhood in a certain place at a certain time. It's a place he knew as a boy. But that's gone, hasn't it? It's dissolved into the past. So what's he searching for? Consider the last line of each verse, which is shorter than the preceding 3. I hope we're not getting too technical here. But this is actually, it's in the sound, and I think it's built into the content. It's the meaning of the poem. You can't separate it from the sound of the poem. That's part of the beauty of Yeats. So, last 2 lines. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening's full of linnet's wings. It leaves a little space, a little moment of emptiness, of silence. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey, I hear it in the deep heart's core. Comes to conclusion. And then there's the remaining kind of rhythmic structure of the line unspoken. It's a space. What can you hear in that space? I hope I'm not being too fanciful here, but later on, much later, when he was translating the Upanishads we've mentioned, he wrote about a space in the heart. And the Upanishad asks, what is in that space? And the answer is everything. Rilke, the German poet, said that the point of a poem is not what you experience when you're reading it, but what you see when you look back at the world. How has it changed? What do you see now? What do you hear? Peace. Peace dropping slow, a memory of the be-loud glade. If this poem is full of an unrequited longing, it doesn't seem to be the case that what he writes of is unobtainable. On the contrary, even sitting somewhere in London with its roadways and pavements grey, it can not only be known, but revelled in. I'll leave you with part 4 from Vacillation, collected in The Winding Stair and Other Poems. Let me pop it up there. My 50th year had come and gone. I sat, a solitary man, in a crowded London shop, an open book and empty cup on the marble tabletop. While on the shop and street I gazed, my body of a sudden blazed, and 20 minutes more or less, it seemed so great my happiness that I was blessed and could bless. Thank you for your company this morning. We're here every Friday at the same time, except for next week, when it will be on Thursday. That's the 16th of November, World Philosophy Day. So how could we not celebrate that? Have a lovely day today and a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you again. Yes, Graham, I think I shall arise and go now and go to Innisfree. It's so beautiful. And that last poem, I mean, we could talk about that. Sat alone in a crowded shop. I mean, what a beautiful, incredible construction that is. Sat alone now in a crowded shop. It's just fantastic. Anyway, have a great day, everybody, and see you again. I'll end the stream now.